If someone had told me that on a typical Tuesday morning I would run into my first love at our local coffee shop, I would have laughed out loud. That morning I was rushing as usual, preparing for an important meeting and thinking about grabbing a coffee to wake up. When I walked into the coffee shop and saw that familiar face, my heart nearly stopped. It was him. Michael, my first love, with whom I had once planned a future years ago. I hesitated, unsure whether to approach him. However, my body seemed to have a mind of its own, and my feet carried me forward. When our eyes met, Michael also looked surprised. He smiled and nodded slightly, as if we had just not seen each other for a few days rather than many years. "Emily?" he asked tentatively. "It's me, Michael." I forced a smile, trying to conceal my complex emotions. We exchanged pleasantries, and he suggested we sit down and chat. I hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. We sat at a table in the corner, gazing at each other, trying to recapture the familiarity from years past. "When did you move here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "A few months ago," Michael replied. "I found a job and wanted a change of scenery." We chatted for a while, reminiscing about the past, those carefree days, the wonderful times we had shared. I found myself laughing at his jokes, his humor unchanged. However, an uneasy feeling slowly crept into my heart. Time flew by, and I had to leave for my meeting. As I got up to leave, Michael suggested we exchange contact information. I hesitated, but eventually gave him my phone number. "It was nice seeing you, Emily. I hope we can meet again," Michael said. "I hope so too," I responded, then left the coffee shop. Back at work, I found it hard to concentrate. My mind kept drifting back to Michael's face and our conversation. I told myself it was just a chance encounter, nothing more. But I couldn't ignore the stirring in my heart and the unease it brought. A few days later, Michael texted me, asking if I had time to meet again. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to see him, while another part was afraid. I knew I was happy with my life now, married to John and content. Yet, I couldn't deny that I still had unresolved feelings for Michael. Eventually, I agreed. I told myself it was just a harmless meeting. We met at a park, walked, and continued our unfinished conversation. Michael shared his experiences over the years, his failures and successes, and why he had moved to this city. I shared my life, mentioning my husband John and our life together. As our conversation deepened, I found myself relaxing. Michael still had that charm that had once drawn me to him, his smile, his voice. Everything felt familiar and comforting. But I kept reminding myself that this was just a harmless reunion, and my life was different now. Our meetings became more frequent, and I found myself looking forward to these moments. I told myself it was just friendly interaction, but the stirring in my heart made me uneasy. I started hiding these meetings, fearing John would misunderstand. However, the lies and secrets soon began to affect my relationship with John. He sensed something was wrong, but I always brushed it off. I told myself it was to avoid unnecessary trouble, but the guilt in my heart grew heavier. One night, John couldn't hold back any longer and asked, "Emily, is there something you're hiding from me? You seem preoccupied lately." My heart raced. I knew it was time to face the truth. I took a deep breath, determined to tell John everything. Telling John the truth felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "John, I need to tell you something," I began, my voice trembling with anxiety. "A few weeks ago, I ran into Michael, my first love, at a coffee shop. We chatted, and since then, we've met a few times." John's face turned somber, and he was silent for a moment, his eyes filled with indescribable pain. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" he asked, his voice low and firm. "I don't know," I admitted. "I was afraid you'd misunderstand, afraid you'd be angry. I thought it was just friendly meetings, nothing more." John took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. "Emily, we're married. We should trust each other. I'm not saying you can't meet others, but hiding it from me hurts." I felt a wave of shame wash over me. I knew John was right. I tried to explain my feelings, but John was clearly hurt. He walked to the window, turning his back to me. "I need some time to process this," he said. The following days were filled with silence. John became withdrawn, and I felt helpless and lonely. I knew this was a consequence I had to face. Meanwhile, Michael contacted me again, asking to meet. I hesitated, knowing that seeing him would only complicate things further. But I also felt I needed answers to understand what this relationship meant. I decided to meet Michael one last time and tell him we couldn't see each other anymore. We met at the park, and I told him my decision directly. "Michael, I can't see you anymore. It's causing too much trouble in my marriage with John," I said firmly. Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with pain and disappointment. "I understand, Emily. I just want you to be happy." We said goodbye, and I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew it was the right decision, but I also knew that John and I had a long road ahead. A few days later, John finally approached me. His tone was gentler than before, but I could still sense his pain and struggle. "Emily, I hope you understand how I feel," John said, tears welling up in his eyes. "I love you, but this situation is really hard for me." "I know, John. I love you too, and I'm willing to do anything to repair our relationship," I replied, tears streaming down my face. We decided to work together, to rebuild our trust through communication and understanding. However, Michael's shadow still loomed over us, a challenge we had to face together. To repair my relationship with John, we decided to attend couples counseling together, hoping that professional help would address our issues. Walking into the counseling office for the first time, I felt a mix of nervousness and uncertainty. I knew we had many issues to face, but I also knew this was the path we had to take. Our counselor, Dr. Thompson, was a warm and understanding professional. He made us feel comfortable and encouraged us to openly express our feelings. During our first session, John and I each shared our stories, our pains, and our fears. "Emily, I understand your confusion," Dr. Thompson said. "Your reunion with Michael is undoubtedly a huge challenge for your marriage, but I hope you both realize that communication and trust are key to resolving this." John nodded, clearly hopeful about the counseling. "I really want us to find a way to resolve this through counseling." As the sessions progressed, John and I began to understand each other's feelings more deeply. We learned to communicate better and stopped avoiding problems like we used to. Despite the difficulty, we both knew it was worth it. During one session, Dr. Thompson gave us an assignment to write letters expressing our true feelings about the relationship. I spent the entire night pouring my heart into the letter. "Dear John," I wrote, "I know my recent actions have hurt and confused you. I'm sorry for hiding my meetings with Michael, but I want you to know my love for you has never wavered. Michael is part of my past, but you are my present and future. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust." John's letter moved me deeply. "Emily, I love you, but this situation has been very painful for me. I hope we can face this together and find a solution. I'm willing to work on restoring our trust because you mean the world to me." These letters helped us communicate more openly and start rebuilding our trust. However, Michael's shadow still lingered over us, a challenge we had to face together. One night, I received a call from Michael. He told me he was moving to another city, hoping for a fresh start. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew this was the true end of our relationship, but I also knew it was for the best. On the day Michael left, I stood by the window staring into the distance. My emotions were complex, but I knew this was the path we had to take. Michael's departure did not immediately resolve the issues between John and me. Although we made some progress in counseling, rebuilding trust takes time and effort. John still struggled with the fact that I had reconnected with Michael, and I continually worked to prove my loyalty. One typical weekend morning, John and I decided to spend a day at the beach, trying to recapture the romance between us. The sun was shining, the sea breeze was gentle, and we walked along the shore, enjoying each other's company. "Emily, I've been thinking about our issues." John suddenly broke the silence. "I know you've made a lot of effort, but I still find it hard to let go completely." I stopped and turned to face him. "John, I know it's hard for you, but I really hope we can move past this together. I'm willing to do whatever it takes for our relationship." John took a deep breath, determination shining in his eyes. "Emily, I love you, but I need more time to rebuild our trust. We need more time and effort." we decided to continue our counseling sessions and try more ways to rebuild our relationship. We started doing more activities together, rediscovering our connection. Despite the difficulties, we both knew it was worth it. During one counseling session, Dr. Thompson suggested new ways to strengthen our trust. He recommended participating in trust-building activities, such as completing tasks together or taking on challenging activities. We decided to go hiking together, an activity requiring teamwork and trust. As we trekked through the mountains, supporting each other and overcoming obstacles, we gradually rebuilt our trust and connection. One night, we sat atop a mountain, gazing at the starry sky. John turned to me, holding my hand. "Emily, I feel like we're coming out of the shadows, finding our relationship again." I smiled and nodded, tears glistening in my eyes. "Yes, John, we are." Despite our progress, Michael's shadow still lingered over us. Every time I received a message or call from Michael, John's eyes would show a hint of unease. To resolve this issue once and for all, I decided to have a final conversation with Michael, telling him we could no longer have any contact. I hoped this conversation would sever my ties with Michael completely, allowing my relationship with John to fully recover. That day, I met Michael at a coffee shop. As I walked in and saw him, my heart raced. I knew this was the true end of our relationship, but I also knew it was for the best. "Michael, I'm sorry, but we can't have any more contact," I said directly. Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with pain and disappointment. "I understand, Emily. I just want you to be happy." We said goodbye, and I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I knew it was the right decision, but I also knew that John and I still had a long road ahead. When I returned home, I told John about my conversation with Michael. After hearing it, his eyes showed relief and gratitude. "Emily, thank you for doing this for us," John said, holding my hand. "John, I'm willing to do anything for our relationship," I replied, tears streaming down my face. We decided to continue our counseling sessions and try more ways to rebuild our relationship. We started doing more activities together, rediscovering our connection. Despite the difficulties, we both knew it was worth it. One sunny morning, I sat in the garden, and John came over to sit beside me. We enjoyed each other's company in silence, as if everything had returned to the beautiful beginning. "We did it, Emily," John said softly. "We overcame it together." I smiled and nodded, holding his hand. Yes, we did. We knew there would be more challenges ahead, but we had learned how to face them. Whatever happened, we would face it together because we knew our love was strong enough to overcome anything. We decided to take a vacation to rediscover the romance between us. On the beach, we watched the sunset, feeling each other's warmth. John turned to me, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. "I love you, Emily. Thank you for always being by my side." "I love you too, John. We'll always be together, no matter what." As the sun set into the horizon, we embraced tightly, knowing we had rediscovered that precious love and trust. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. We will continue to bring you more captivating stories. Thank you for your support. Our vacation was meant to be a time of healing, but life had other plans. The day we returned home, we found an envelope on our doorstep. Inside was a letter from Michael. My heart sank as I read his words, full of apologies and regrets. He had decided to leave the city for good, but he felt the need to explain everything. "Emily, I owe you the truth. Our separation wasn't just my fault. I made mistakes, but there were things you didn't know," the letter began. John looked at me, his eyes searching for answers. I felt a surge of anxiety. Could this letter unravel the progress we had made? "Emily, you need to read this," John said, handing the letter back to me. Reluctantly, I continued reading. Michael detailed events from our past that I had either forgotten or never fully understood. There were moments of betrayal and misunderstandings that painted a more complex picture of our relationship. "I wanted to move on, but I couldn't without telling you everything. I hope this brings you closure," Michael wrote. John and I sat in silence, the weight of Michael's words hanging between us. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. "Emily, we can't let this drag us back. We've come too far," John said firmly. "I know, John, but I need to process this," I replied, my voice shaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. Michael's letter had opened old wounds, but it also gave me a chance to finally understand the full story. I realized that to truly move forward, I needed to confront my past once and for all. The next morning, I suggested to John that we take one more counseling session to discuss Michael's letter. He agreed, and we met with Dr. Thompson that afternoon. Emily, John, it's clear this letter has stirred up a lot of emotions. It's important to address them openly, Dr. Thompson said. As we talked, I felt a sense of catharsis. Michael's letter, though painful, allowed me to release long-held guilt and confusion. John listened intently, his support unwavering. I understand now. This isn't just about Michael. It's about how I see myself and my past, I admitted. John squeezed my hand. Emily, I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. After the session, we decided to burn the letter, symbolizing our commitment to leaving the past behind. As the flames consumed Michael's words, I felt a sense of liberation. In the weeks that followed, John and I grew closer than ever. We focused on building new memories, reinforcing our bond. We planned weekend getaways, took up new hobbies together, and made time for each other in ways we hadn't before. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our porch, John turned to me with a smile. Emily, this feels like a new beginning. I'm grateful for everything we've been through because it's brought us here. I nodded, tears of joy filling my eyes. I feel the same way, John. We've faced our past, and now we're ready for our future. We knew challenges would still arise, but we had learned to face them together. Our love had been tested, and it emerged stronger than ever. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share. We will continue to bring you more captivating stories. Thank you for your support.